Actually, yellow. Yeah, yellow's beautiful. I see music too. Here's what Baby looks like. It's dope, right? Love that beat. I'm way into the whole retro gaming thing. I mean, it takes me back to being a kid in Virginia Beach. A friend sent me this. It gets me every time. I gotta send it to my brother. I have my own pro skate team. I got photos of all these guys in here. It's so crazy. And then I've got my scrap pictures, you know, all the visual things that I love. I mean, the way I see it, art is like music for your eyes. Yes, sir.
HP Pavilion Entertainment Notebooks with Intel Centrino Dual Mobile Technology. The computer is personal again.
We want to take you to Cuba now. NBC's Mary Murray is our Havana-based producer, has been there for many years covering the regime of Fidel Castro. It's good to talk to you again, Mary. What do we really know about the health of Fidel Castro?
Well, Chris, I'll tell you, the government here keeps a very tight lid on all information. I've been calling everybody I know here on the island this morning, and actually I finally got one source who told me this morning that Fidel was in pretty bad shape. We're not sure when he was operated on. It was either the day of the 27th or maybe the morning of the 28th. It took at least 2 days for doctors to feel that he was out of the woods, and now people pretty confidently say he's on the road to recovery. You have to remember, Chris, he's 80 years old in just 2 weeks, and anything could happen. He's a strong 80. He's been in pretty good health all these years. Anything could happen, but at least at this point, people feel confident that he's going to recover from this illness.
You may know that there were obviously some celebrations in the streets of Miami, and people are still honking horns there, and they can almost taste democracy for the island. But is it easy to gauge what the real reaction is of the Cuban people there?
I think it is here, Chris. You know, people are going about their daily business. So when you look at pictures from Havana, it just looks like, a normal work day. But there is a high level of anxiety here. You sense it with anyone you really speak to. There's real concern about this aging leader's health. In some ways, I think people are still in a state of shock. It was a surprise announcement Monday night that he was ill and that he was handing over power provisionally to his brother. And in fact, a lot of people here, I think, at first believed that he may have already been dead, and this was the government's way of slowly leaking that news. Now I think people here are taking the government health updates at face value. They remain highly concerned about his well-being. And you have to remember, for anyone here under the age of 47, Fidel Castro is the only president they've known. He's been ruling here since 1959. Chris?
Thanks, Mary. Really appreciate that. So do Cuban Americans see this as an opportunity to rise up against the dictator who made them leave their homeland? I'm joined by Luis Martínez-Fernández, Director of Latin American Studies at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Welcome, Professor.
Good morning.
Do you think that this is indeed an opening? I know so many Cuban Americans are hoping now that there would be a real chance for democracy on the island.
Well, what I think is going to begin happening is that undoubtedly, whether Castro's doing well or not, whether he's dead or alive, we are seeing the first steps towards a transition. His health is not well, and that transition under the hands of Raúl Castro will spell changes very soon.
He's 75 years old, though. He also not exactly a spring chicken. He doesn't have, arguably, the charisma, the political skill, the I guess some might call it rhetorical brilliance. Certainly, he doesn't speak at length the way his brother Fidel does. What would be, though, do you think, the real difference between these two men in terms of the everyday lives of the Cuban people?
Well, indeed, Raúl Castro does not have the stature or the mystique or the authority that surrounds Fidel Castro. Therefore, his rule, when it comes to be, will have to be one in which he negotiates with other parties, in which he brings into the leading table other members of the Cuban political elite, the military as well. And certainly, because he's more pragmatic than Fidel Castro, he will begin to move in the direction of economic transformations for the country, and I believe very strongly that an opening of trade with the United States.
Yeah, which the lack of it has been so devastating for the economy there and for the people as well. What do you think, though, really is the feeling on the ground there? Because you probably heard just Mary Murray saying 70% of the people who live in Cuba have never known any other leader but Fidel Castro, and sometimes that can be hugely anxiety-producing. Even if you don't love the system you're living under now, the idea of change, sometimes it's easier to deal with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't. How much anxiety do you think there is there now?
Well, that's very true. The mysterious way in which the news have been flowing out regarding Fidel Castro's state has added to a sense of anxiety. There's one thing that I think we should all keep in mind, and that is that Fidel Castro means stability. Fidel Castro has provided the United States for 47 years with what the United States has always wanted out of Cuba, ironically, which is stability. His demise is associated by almost everybody with inevitable change.
Professor, thanks very much. We do appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Back here in the States, thousands still without power in Connecticut after a series of severe storms yesterday. And of course, no power means no air conditioning in 100-degree heat. Reporter Susan Goodman with NBC station WVIT is in Orange, Connecticut.
Wicked winds and severe lightning have left their mark all across Orange, Connecticut. Crews are having to deal with dozens and dozens of downed power lines. And take a look at this. This is the way lawns look across this town. Cleanup is supposed to take several days. And looking at this around me, you don't have to wonder why. Trees are littering lawns from beginning to end. They fell on homes and cars and made roads impassable. The extensive damage was the reason behind numerous road closures and detours throughout town. The damage is so pervasive along Longmeadow Road, residents got out there